So now we can start. Okay. All right. So here we are a little bit today, talking morning and afternoon about how our minds are set in stone, and how, and in the afternoon about whatever it was. It'll come. So we think set our motivation. Okay. We think the lamas, we know the lamas would say we set our motivation. Well, what we might say is we set our purpose. What's our goal? Why are we here? You know, it's to listen, to think about, to analyze, contemplate these words. Don't just swallow them whole, nor reject them. Listen to them, and if there's something useful, we think we're going to put it into practice. It's advice, you know, and it's advice about this human mind of ours, this amazing potential we have, according to Buddha, so that we can be happy and we can help others. That's the bottom line. Thinking like that, and we can express this in our little prayer. First two lines, we're reminding ourselves of our refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, and the second two lines, this altruistic aspiration to listen to these teachings so we can develop our potential, so we can help others. I'll sing it in Tibetan. And if people know it, they can sing with me, or if you have it somewhere. No? You don't have it anywhere? Yeah. The people? The refuge prayer. I'll just sing it, and that's okay. It's up there if you have it. There you go. That's the one. Sangye, Chedang, Soke, Chognam La, Jangshu Badu Dagni, Kyapsu Chi, Dagi Chernyen, Gipe Sonam Ki, Drola Penchir, Sangye Druppa Shog, Sangye Chedang, Soke, Chognam La, Jangshu Badu Dagni, Kyapsu Chi, Dagi Chernyen, Gipe Sonam Ki, Drola Penchir, Sangye Druppa Shog, Sangye Chedang, Soke, Chognam La, Jangshu Badu Dagni, Kyapsu Chi, Dagi Chernyen, Gipe Sonam Ki, Drola Penchir, Sangye Druppa Shog. All right. And then, yeah, that'll do. That'll do. That's enough. That's enough. That's enough. That's good. Okay. So, our mind is not set in stone. I think we can hear that, and our mothers told us that. Things aren't set in stone. It's very profound. It's that we already know it. But why is it so hard for us to accept it? You know, because we know the instinct is when things are going bad, it feels like it's forever, for eternity, you know. And when things are going good, we're terrified that it won't be for eternity, isn't it? So there's always a problem. You're constantly wanting the ugly thing to go away, but thinking it's lasting forever, and then terrified the good thing will go away, wanting it to last forever, you know. So somehow it's to do with the way we see things, the mind. And so this is where the Buddha's expertise is really clear, that the mind, what goes on here, every millisecond there's something going on in here, and then we know every millisecond there's something going on out there. But the main player in this is not the events of the outside world, it's what's inside the mind. What's inside the mind, you know. So one of the key things that Buddha has found from his own experience, he's not a creator, he didn't make it all up. Someone didn't reveal this stuff to him. He's not speculating. He didn't have a dream about it. He didn't have a vision of it. It's from his own direct experience, his own clear, direct experience. And then having the confidence of that, he then presents it and says, this is what I've found to be so. This is what I've found to be the consequences if you follow this methodology. Over to you if you'd want it. Basically, that's what it is, you know. So Buddha's deal is that this mind of ours, these thoughts and feelings and emotions and unconscious and subconscious and instinct and intuition, has this extraordinary potential to be rid of, simply putting it, this is the etymology of the word Buddha telling us this, rid of all the rubbish, all the misconceptions, all the fears, all the voices of ego, which we so take for granted as normal that we'd think we'd be weird if we didn't have them, like attachment and anger and depression and jealousy and low self-esteem. Buddha has found that these are not intrinsic to us. They're not at the core of our being. As they say in Buddhist psychology, they're adventitious. Therefore, they can be removed. And then the other parts of our mind, the goodness, the virtue, the wisdom, the clarity, that is at the core of our being. Interestingly, it's a way of saying it. It's surprising to us. Because I think in our view, our own instinctive feeling is that all of these bits and pieces like love and compassion and jealousy and depression, they're normal parts of a normal person. And there's no idea, there's no view in neuroscience, there's no view in modern psychology, I would suggest, that says that we can get rid of one lot and develop the others, you know. But this is the Buddha's view. So if it's true, we better understand what he means by it, because it sounds a bit abstract to us. So first of all, we're not talking about the brain. The brain science is very brilliant. And it's, so the way I like to put it, without insulting brain scientists, without insulting neuroscientists, that what goes on in the brain is a physical indicator of what's actually going on in the mind itself. So it's quite a subtle way to put it, because it's not how we think in our modern world. So your mind is not your brain, but it works inextricably linked with your brain. Your mind is not physical. Your mind is not the handiwork of mummy or daddy or a creator. Your mind is not a function of the brain, but it's intimately connected to the brain. So the key job of being a Buddhist is to work with your mind. That means you have to know your mind, and that's why you have to have these basic techniques that Buddha, uses, these concentration meditation techniques. At the moment, I mean, if the mind if the transformation of our mind, our thoughts and feelings and emotions, is the job to be done to lessen suffering and grow happiness, to become this Buddha that he says in long term is our natural potential, then we better learn to know what the mind is, first theoretically, and then apply that technology, that methodology, to do the job ourselves. And that's the part that's difficult. That means we have to know our mind intimately. That means second by second, thought by thought. So, of course, that sounds insane initially, because we know there are 1,000 thoughts a second. Buddhist psychology, Western psychology says that. Buddha agrees, and so there's so many thoughts. And of course, we don't really notice them at the level of thoughts. We just notice them at the intense level of emotional, when they're emotional. We don't pay attention 90% of the time to our mind, do we? In just a normal daily life. If we're doing something very in a focused way, like drive the car or, work out play the piano, you're focusing very intensely then on those jobs. It's true. But in normal day-to-day life, when you get up and walk around and get your breakfast and go here and go there, we know our mind is never stopping for 1 second, but we're not paying attention until it's emotional, until it's intense. We don't pay attention. And because we don't invite the thoughts, so we assume, oh, they're just there. And then the worst tragedy is when they come and they arise, we assume they're true. What I mean is, when you have a thought, it ought to be related to reality, oughtn't it? You have a thought that says 1 + 1 = 2. That's a thought. Well, that ought to be proven to be a fact. So we have thoughts like, I'm a creep and she hates me. We believe them because they arise. There's no validity to them necessarily, but just because they arise, we tend to believe them. This is what's fascinating, actually. Whatever arises in our mind, we tend to believe is true. This is the worst crime against ourselves, So here we're talking about the emotional thoughts, like attachment and anger and depression, jealousy, low self-esteem, or whatever you like. The thoughts where we can learn, the thoughts that we can learn to train to have, like thoughts about math and thoughts about music and thoughts about cooking, intellectual thoughts. We know we can train our minds to have those thoughts and to train them to become very automatic. That's learning something. We know we can do that, but we don't have a sense that we can change our mind emotionally. It's very curious. I find that really most fascinating, actually, that we know we can train our minds in a rigorous way to learn something you've never done before. You can start with not even knowing 1 + 1 = 2 to eventually knowing E = mc². We know we can learn all that. It's all out there, ready to be learned. And what part of you learns it? Your mind. But we don't know we can learn to be more loving, and we don't know we can learn to be less angry. We think they're set in stone. We know our mind is not set in stone insofar as not knowing 1 + 1 = 2. We know our mind is not set in stone and we can learn it. But we don't know that we can learn that our mind is not set in stone in terms of anger and compassion. That's what's very curious. We assume because anger arises out of the blue, uninvited, it must be set in stone. And it must be true. This is very fascinating to see this. Because we make this massive distinction, don't we, between the intellectual and the emotional. Well, from the Buddhist perspective, they're all parts of the same part of the mind. They're all mental consciousness. You see, we've got sensory consciousness, the capacity for cognition via the 5 senses. They're very simple, limited cognitions. We give them way more power than they really got, but they're clear. The rest, is from the mental consciousness. And as Lama Zopa says, that's where the workshop is. That's where all the thoughts and feelings and emotions are. And because they don't seem to be clear, because we haven't trained them, they just seem to be chaotic. And we don't realize we can train our minds. We know we can train our minds when it comes to thoughts about music, but we don't know we can train our minds when it comes to love and compassion and anger and jealousy. This is the thing, because they're all part of the same part of the mind. They're all in the mental consciousness. But we make this massive distinction, and we give such power to the emotional ones, But this is what's interesting. They're all rooted in being conceptual thoughts. 1 + 1 is a conceptual thought, clear. But love, may you be happy, it begins with a conceptual thought. Anger, that over-exaggerates your ugliness when you dare to do something that I don't want. We don't think that's a conceptual thought. We think it's an emotion. We say emotion. But it's a conceptual thought. Rooted in the depth of our being is the thought that exaggerates the ugliness of that person because they just did what your attachment didn't want. They're all thought processes, but because they're so habitual and so ancient and so deep and so spontaneous, we don't notice the thought process. We just notice the feeling. That's why we need to have concentration meditation to train the mind to stay focused so we can then learn to pay attention to these thousands of thoughts in there at a more subtle level and to hear them clearly as thoughts, to hear these conceptual stories, anger, attachment, jealousy, low self-esteem, arrogance. They're all conceptual, like a script in our head that we've practiced and practiced, and that just seems to come spontaneously. So, of course, we don't notice them until they rise to the surface as physical feelings, because the body and the mind are intimately connected. Because we don't pay attention. That's why we have to start to pay attention. That's why we have these concentration meditation techniques that Buddha got from his genius Indians before that. These brilliant techniques they invented, practical skills to help us focus the mind so that then we can learn to pay attention to this uncontrolled chaos that seems to be there, arising out of nowhere, But because they feel like they're set in stone, it feels real. That anger, that jealousy, it feels like so permanent and solid. So to begin to have confidence, there's just a habit. And you can change habits, is very encouraging. We need to do that. We need to do that. So then we ask, well, why should we do this? It's because if we start to look at our mind, and then we can start to prove Buddha's point that the neuroses, the neurotic, uncontrolled, emotional, voices of ego, they're all rooted in I. They're all rooted in I. They're all the voices of the neurotic I, necessarily. And you learn to hear those, and you can distinguish them from love and compassion and kindness. These are thoughts and feelings that are rooted in reasonableness. They're rooted in dependent arising. They're connected to others. They're empathetic. And they're more valid because they're rooted in interdependence, whereas the voices of ego are tight, internal, I-based, fear-based, panic-stricken, and distorted. They're not, in that sense, they're not valid cognitions. It sounds very curious to talk about the mind like that, a valid cognition. A valid cognition is a thought or even a moment of the mind, a moment of cognition that is related to something that is valid. There is a basis for it. Valid cognition is where there's something that is related to it as real. So 1 + 1 is 2 is a cognition, is a thought. We haven't indeed constructed it. We made that up, but we make it as it's a conventional truth. And when your mind says 1 + 1 is 2, that is a valid cognition because it fits with what's real conventionally. Love is said to be, and this is where it sounds strange, love is a valid cognition, insofar valid meaning it's rooted in reality, which means it's connected to others, it's dependent arising, it's sort of like harmonious. The Buddha is saying that the neuroses cause suffering and the virtues cause happiness. Simply, yourself, if you're feeling loving and kind, you feel more relaxed and open. If you're feeling attached and angry, you're feeling tight and restricted. We can see this. And this is because the delusions are not based in reality, meaning they're stories we've made up. They have no basis. The key function of all the unhappy states of mind, the key function is that they distort, they embellish, they exaggerate. When we can begin to recognize that, we're really knowing our minds well. And the virtues of kind of insofar as they're connected to others, like love is a delight. When you see someone else and they're happy and you delight in their happiness, that's love. When you see someone suffering and you have empathy, that's compassion. That's compassion. They're valid concepts insofar, and this is what's curious, that they're rooted in dependent arising. They're not just I-based, sort of suffering, internal, concrete, set in stone. And they cause the mind to be open and happy. The other lot cause the mind to be closed and miserable. I think we can prove that from our own experience. But the key one is we can change our mind. And we know it. Like I said, when it comes to math and music, we know it. But it's hard work. I mean, 90% of people who go to try to become like 95% of people who go to, train with tennis with Roger Federer will give up before they finish because, maybe all the conditions aren't there or just too much effort, too much hard work to change your mind into the mind of a tennis player, not to mention then the hitting the ball part of it. So most of us give up. But when it comes to emotional stuff, we really don't believe we can change. This is really shocking. We really believe this is who I am. We really believe I'm a depressed person. I'm an angry person. I'm a jealous person. This is who I am. It feels like that. We believe it's like that. This is the worst crime against ourselves. I can't do it. Not possible, we say. So trying to understand just theoretically that our mind, our thoughts and feelings and emotions are not set in stone. So we have to ask the question, why should I change them? Well, you've got to observe Buddha's view and check it out, that these unhappy ones, the neuroses, they're the cause of pain and suffering. Check the last time you're angry, depressed, and jealous. You don't go, wow, Robina, I was jealous yesterday. It was just great. Nobody says that. Or a jealous person talking to you. No one says, oh, aren't they wonderful? Listen to their lovely jealousy. No, it's horrible. We know this instinctively. And so also part of the problem is, we think, well, excuse me, why should I change? He did cheat on me. Didn't you notice? He did cheat on me. Why should I not be jealous? It's my right to be jealous. So there's a lot of that kind of entitlement, and it's not my fault. I'm a victim. What do you mean I should change? He should change. This is a major stumbling block to why we don't even want to change. So to even get to the point where you're angry or jealous or depressed and own it without guilt and shame, own it and know it's your mind and know you can change it, that's a pretty powerful point to get at. That's pretty tasty. That's pretty delicious. Then you're on the right track, I promise. And that's why really learning to see, which initially is quite surprising to us, is how these emotions, and when you're emotional with anger or jealousy or depression, to see how they're rooted in being conceptual stories, that's a big surprise to us. When we can see that, we're really on the right track, I tell you. So the first thing is to try to own the anger, to own the jealousy, the depression, for example, rather than it's not my fault, rather than what do you mean I shouldn't be angry? I'm allowed to be angry. Look what he did to me, which is the commonest first instinct. Then it's like nothing can be done if you say that. And this is very difficult to see because it's not the view we have in our modern culture, in our modern psychology. Because in our modern psychology and our neuroscience, we look, well, certainly in the modern psychology, psychological views, the main thing we look at is what happened to me to cause me to be angry. We look at the outside as for the main cause. This already is the problem, Buddha says. He's not saying bad things don't happen to us. He has his explanations for why. That's karma, which is a whole nother kettle of fish. He's not saying it didn't happen, but he's saying, even if you don't have the view of karma, he's saying that the anger itself The anger itself, the action, the boyfriend cheating on you, fact. But the anger itself, that's yours. So then the Buddhist view is, rather than thinking, I'm angry because he cheated on me, you think, someone says, why are you angry? And I'll say, my boyfriend cheated. Then that's the end of it. The boyfriend's got to change and then I'll change. But here the Buddhist view is, yes, he cheated on you. I saw that. And like I said, he's got his explanations. But he says the anger itself, his answer to the question, Buddha, why am I angry, is so embarrassingly simple, we get upset. He says, guess what, Robina? It's because you've been angry before. But excuse me, mate, why was I angry before? It's because you've got the habit to be angry, Robina. It's a habit. That's the simplest point he's making. It's so simple, it's like annoying to us. It's sort of obvious. If I see you play the piano easily, why are you playing piano, Robina? Why are you good at it? Well, Robina, excuse me, duh, I have been doing it. I did it yesterday and the day before. I've practiced it. It's my habit. Same thing. Same thing. So if anger arises easily, it's because the habit is there. If jealousy arises easily, it's because the habit is there, which means you've done it before. But we don't like to hear that. Cause we think it's making me look, it's my fault, because we get guilty and want to blame, That's all this rubbish we add on top. This is the key point that Buddha's making about the mind. It's habit. Everything's habit. Your ability to play piano, and you start to play piano and you keep playing piano, guess what? You get good at it. It's not rocket science. Same with our emotions. But we have a whole different discussion when it comes to emotions. When you're good at piano, you don't say, oh, well, it's not my fault. It's Bach's fault. He wrote good music. And you don't say, well, it's my teacher's fault. She taught me how. And you don't say it's Mr. Einstein. Not Einstein. What's the man's name? Steinway. You don't say it's Mr. Steinway's fault. He created a good piano. You take responsibility and you say, yeah, you're right. I'm the fault. I'm the blame of why I'm good at music. You own it happily. We know that. But when it comes to emotions, we've got a whole different view, which is the wackiest thing, I'm this innocent victim. It's not my fault. I didn't ask to get born, and it's always someone else's fault. And if you like, you even blame the people. You blame your boyfriend for making you unhappy when he cheats on you. But if he's kind to you, you also blame him for why you're happy. Why are you happy, Robina? What's my boyfriend's fault? He's kind to me. So in both ways, it's the same. We feel like this kind of innocent victim that has no choice in the matter, that doesn't think that my mind plays any role at all, and I'm just this kind of pulled from pillar to post by the bad and good things in the world. That's how we feel. That's ego's feeling. We can see this. We recognize it. It's a complete nonsense interpretation, Buddha says. It's rubbish. So the first job is to want to own as mine what's in my mind. Sounds so simple, but oh my goodness, the toughest job we'll ever do. This is huge. Even if you don't want to go further and go to the karma and past lives and blah, blah, even you don't even want to do that, this already is pretty tasty. That's why I always use that example of this woman in prison, a dear friend of mine now. In fact, I met her after she got out. Her name is Sunny, and she was in prison for like 17 years, 12 years on death row in Florida, wrongly accused in the 70s of murdering 2 policemen along with her husband. Husband got executed. She went to the execution. She was in prison too, and his head burst into flames. I mean, it's like medieval, like a nightmare. One nightmarish thing after another occurred. She had no religion, no particular religion. She lost her children. Her mother and father were killed in a car accident. She's on death row. She's in this cell on her own for like year in and year out with a Bible. This nice Jewish girl, And she had nothing. And at some point, she said, at some point I realized I couldn't change anything. But they couldn't take my mind from me, she said. So then various other things. She's wrote a memoir. And I mean, this for me is so astonishing, such intelligence. It's the only way I can put it, that she could see that her mind was, meaning her thoughts, meaning her feelings, her emotions, they were hers. She could see that, and she knew that she could change them. She had no particular methods. She had no particular techniques that she learned. She had no particular religion, no view of karma. But she started to learn yoga herself and started her own work on her own mind, learning to stop being angry, learning to stop being despairing and full of rage, and which you can only imagine after, years and years on death row, innocent, husband murdered. husband executed, children taken away, family dead, like a nightmare. But she had this ability, this astonishing, for me, emotional intelligence that she could see that her mind wasn't set in stone, and that what went on in her mind was the source of her sanity or insanity. That's pretty incredible, I tell you. That's so astonishing for me. I never get over it, this woman. She's so extraordinary. For years and years, that's what she did. She practiced. She said, I'd give myself 5 minutes to be raging angry. Then she would stop and go back to her inner work. I mean, it's incredible. I never get over this woman. I tell you, she's 80-something now. I never get over it. She's incredible. And when you meet her, you'd never know she had this history of this nightmare of years. And you know why? There's no other discussion now. We all talk about PTSD. You know, someone stands on your toe, you get PTSD. I'm being a bit sarcastic. I agree. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Guess what that is? Is when you're unable to deal with the thing when it happens. This is what it is. That's what it is, you know. When the thing happens, because when we understand attachment, as Lama Yeshe says, I can tell you about attachment for one whole year. But we'll never begin to understand it until we start going deep inside. And that's why attachment, effectively for the Buddha, is the main source of suffering. Which sounds so bizarre to us because it's not what we think at all. But attachment is this primordial main voice of ego grasping that is primordially only wanting, desperately, every millisecond, at the depth of our being, desperately only wanting the nice things, only ever wanting nice sounds, nice smell, nice taste, nice touch, stroking, praise, loving, lovely things. It only wants what I want. It only wants the nice things, what I want. It's just the deepest suffering in our being, and it's constantly anxious and can only cope with nice things. So, of course, the millisecond the bad thing happens, stubbing your toe, a car accident, not to mention being on death row for 17 years, wrongly accused of murdering 2 policemen, the whole world thinking you're a monster, losing your children, your husband's head bursting into flames on death row. Excuse me. She dealt with it. She was able to see it, confront it, and go against it. So she doesn't have trauma. She doesn't have post-traumatic stress disorder, because she's dealt with it. And this is what we don't think in our culture. The commonest thing we say is, once those bad things happen, you never get over it. You can never get over the trauma, never get over the PTSD. Or once someone wrote to me and said she got this extra special PTSD, like she had the biggest badge on the planet. I'm not being mean. That's what attachment is. Attachment only wants things nice. It can't bear problems. That's why the millisecond you stub your toe, you have a panic attack. Aversion arises and you can't cope. When not to mention somebody murdering you, somebody killing you, someone harming you, someone raping you, someone taking your children away, someone accusing you of murder. Of course it's difficult. It's the most difficult job we'll ever do because we're not trained, but we can train to welcome. This is another whole level of practice. Once we understand attachment, this deep emotional hunger, this yearning, this craving that exaggerates the deliciousness that comes from a sense of being nothing and nobody, and is craving only the nice things, can only cope with things being lovely. And the millisecond it doesn't get it, the panic attack of aversion or anger or what we call trauma happens, you know. And then it becomes depression for some people, or you go crazy and you murder others for other people. So this is seemingly simple. Attachment and anger sounds so cute, you know, but they're primordially deep and they're happening 1,000 times a day. So this is the essence of being a Buddhist, knowing your mind to these intimate degrees and catching whatever comes. So, and this is the level of practice, this is the more advanced, doing what Sunny did. When you greet the problem, you know you can't change it. She knew there was nothing she could do to change anything, but they couldn't take my mind from me. So what she did was, and this is the point, literally she reconfigured the conceptual stories in her mind. She reinterpreted this entire situation. This is pretty intense. It's pretty incredible. And she's not a Buddhist. She's not a Christian. She's not anything. She just was an intelligent human being. For me, astonishing intelligence, actually. And when you meet her now, she's a little old lady in a wheelchair. You'd never know, never know. I know so many people have been in prison, and it's a pretty horrible place if you're a normal person and don't know how to work on your mind, and you know, because it's just so emotionally stunting. And if people feel the pain of this kind of suppression of anything in a person when they come out of prison. But her, you would never know. She doesn't go on about it. She's just a simple, ordinary little old lady in a wheelchair. You'd never know she'd have the 17 years of nightmare because she dealt with it. She found her own internal way to get rid of the anger, grief, despair, loss, rage, hopelessness, That's pretty incredible. And this is exactly straight out of Buddha's playbook. This is exactly, but she's not a Buddhist. So it really shows Buddha didn't make this stuff up. He just intelligently observed that it's possible. And she had this astonishing ability to do it, I'm not trying to make her a saint or anything. But when you hear the nightmare that she had, and you hear how she dealt with it, it's the proof, It's possible. But you've got to have incredible courage to do that. Are we communicating? Good. Ask me some questions. Questions, folks. Anybody. Anything at all you want to ask. Anything. Nothing? Yes. Go, go, go. Go, sweetheart.
Yeah.
Yes.
What is the antidote to attachment to food? Like food that's
darling,
bad for
it's a
our
really
body?
major one, isn't it? Forget attachment to being loved or attachment to, dogs or boyfriends. It's the deepest one because the body is the thing. I mean, we've got a body and we've got a mind, right? Isn't it? But because our body sort of looms large, and this is the materialist view, is we are only the body, isn't it? We think we are the body, right? But the Buddhist view is here we have this mind that occupies this body, if you like. And it's the deepest one, even though it's a gross attachment. It's far more gross than, say, the craving to be liked by others. That's even a more subtle attachment. But this one is very hard because we live in this body daily, and it's and we are so attached to the body. We make the body the boss. I remember Lama Zopa joked one time about us Westerners. He said you can never work out whether you're more attached to your body or the food. And this is the big drama, isn't it? This is the extreme. I mean, the extreme example of, like, bulimia or anorexia, isn't it? It's like intense attachment to food, but even more attachment to the body. But it gets all kind of muddled, I'm not trying to make it easy. I know one of my sisters was bulimic and anorexic. And I don't think I know anybody who's not attached to food. It's rare not to be attached to food because we're all attached to our body, isn't it? And if you're stringent like an anorexic and extreme with your food, it's because you're attached to your body. So it's like either one way or the other. It's the same, it's the same symptom. So the thing to understand, but the crucial thing to understand about attachment, its main energy is dissatisfaction. Meaning, I'm not enough, I don't have enough, it isn't enough, it's not enough, no matter what I get, it's not enough, no matter what people tell me about me, it's not enough, and I'm not enough. So it's just this primordial, never happy with what we are. And so attachment to food is because it's the body, and it's inevitable. It's mostly the commonest one. The thing we have to do is then learn to know that you can't just get over it overnight. It's so deep. So you just learn, like anything, if it's a problem, we learn to just discipline. And then you have to control your hand and not keep putting the cake in the mouth. Because why we keep putting the cake in the mouth is because attachment thinks that when you get the cake, you'll feel satisfied. And that's where interesting point. I know as a kid, I'm totally attached to food still. It's one of my main attachments, but doesn't run my life now. It's just there. You learn to live with it, what I'm saying. But when I was a kid, of course, what I did was I ate until I was full because I assumed that was satisfaction. So when we start to understand that a full stomach is all you get from if you're eating food, you can't get satisfaction from eating food because, and this is the miracle, the one that certainly fits with the Buddhist psychological model, satisfaction is a mental state. Do you understand? You got to develop satisfaction. You got to train your mind to say, I'm okay. I have enough. You don't believe it initially after the second piece when you want 4 more, but you have to learn to train yourself to, 1, discipline the hand to stay in the lap, and 2, train yourself to go against the impulse to believe that you're not satisfied yet. You've got to keep eating, which is what attachment wants to do until you vomit. Do you understand? So you train yourself. It's okay, Robina. I'm content. I'm okay. It doesn't work immediately, but that's the antidote. And it's a process. And it's boring. There's nothing cosmic about it. Do you understand? Do you understand? It's not easy. And you're going to fall off the wagon 24 hours a day. Every time you're going to see the food and eat too much, you've got to start again. Just start again. And when you know your mind is not set in stone, you can train your mind to be content. But that's with saying the thought. It doesn't happen immediately. Playing the piano doesn't happen immediately, but we know that. You keep training. The same with these thoughts. You train yourself. So you've got to discipline by not stuffing the cake in. And second, train yourself to say, I am okay. It is enough. So, and slowly changes come. It's nothing mystical. It's like that. There's nothing more. I mean, other practices help altogether if you make it part of your whole daily practice, spiritual practice. But basically, it's that. But also the other one is you learn to live with it. People who are alcoholic, who they say, I know the 12, I've heard about the 12-step business, and you say, I am an alcoholic, they say, apparently. So and then 24 hours a day, you're an alcoholic. So, but what I'm saying is you learn to live with it. You learn to live with, you learn to live with it, you learn to live with the thought of food popping up. People who've got attachment to sex is the same thing. You have to discipline. Not because it's sort of fundamentalist or wrong. I'm allowed to have 27 girls if I want. It's because it won't bring you happiness. We all can prove that eating too much cake won't bring you happiness. So they have to try something else. And so this is the Buddha's point, which is instinctively opposite what we think. The instinct of attachment is attachment. Satisfaction will come when I get the cake. So you keep having the second piece, maybe it'll come. Third piece, maybe I keep trying. No, because all you want to do is vomit. So the only way satisfaction comes is by learning to say, I am satisfied and be content. It's a mental process. That's really intense and it takes time. And that means living with the thought that I'm, thinking of food. One of the signs of attachment of anything is that you think about it. So one of my friends on death row in Kentucky, Mitchell, who's the Buddhist, he says about this other guy whom I know. I see him when he comes. I go there and I go to classes, used to give classes, and he would come. He sit there very relaxed. I know the guy. Mitchell said, Robina, he thinks of torture all the time. So can you imagine thinking of torture all the time? I mean, can you imagine the nightmare of that when we just think of cakes all the time, So it's like one of the functions of attachment, you think of the object all the time. So if you attach to sex, you think of the object all the time. And of course, it's painful. And it's just this terrible conflict. And we get guilty and ashamed and we identify ourselves. They've got to stop all that. If you take the view of karma, that you just come into this life with these habits, and you see the habit is an intense one that doesn't bring you any satisfaction, then you learn to live with it, because we are all grown-ups and we can learn to discipline. We can learn again to go against the craving to put the cake in the mouth. We have to learn to go against the craving to jump on the 15th boy on the day, because you're not going to help others. But we're panic-stricken because we think if we don't satisfy it, we'll go crazy. But we won't go crazy. It's pretty intense. It's hard work. It's hard work. It won't go away overnight. But by feeding it, it'll never go away. But by not feeding it, it calms it down. Do you understand? This is the process. We've got to have courage to learn to live with it. The thought of the food comes. But then just to learn to be disciplined. Control. The very first level of practice in Buddhism, forget your mind, is control your body and speech. Control the servants of the mind. That's why you've got to be conscious. So by controlling the servant of attachment is the hand in this case to go get the cake, You keep your hand in your lap. But it's giving up being a junkie, basically. Because attachment is just a junkie mind. Depends on the object. Do you understand? So just keep moving, honey. And be brave and let the thoughts be there, but don't give them power. And then every time you don't eat, every time you don't give in to the attachment, you delight for yourself. You rejoice. Do you understand? And I mean, we're happy to do this level of discipline and rigor when it comes to playing tennis and learning to be a tennis player. It's exhausting how hard you work, 6, 8, 10 hours a day, but you're prepared to do it. Well, the same here, the effort to do it, see the result, your own contentment. Do you understand? And being in control, not letting the cake control you. It's easy to say it, but this is the essence of the approach, And then use whatever techniques you can. Support, like the AA people have a sponsor. Do you understand? And then delight in your progress. But live with these and not be scared of the thoughts. Do you understand? This is really important. I remember one girl was Tinder, one of those things, Tinder, I don't know how they work, but I certainly thought I would have liked Tinder when I was younger. I had to go out and searching for people, physical human beings in clubs and places, Here, just press a button or whatever you do on Tinder, I don't know. But anyway, this girl said it was a bit depressing because, she was just getting dressed after having sex with this boy, and she looks over at the bed and he's on his computer, on his phone, getting the next girl, That's how attachment works. Oh, I remember another time, one boy who went to Sex Anonymous, not Alcoholics, not whatever it's called, you understand? And he said as he was having sex with the 10th girl, he was thinking of the 11th girl, because that's what attachment does. Even as you're having the cake, even as you're having the mouthful of food. Okay, what happens is attachment is, first of all, dissatisfaction. Oh, what's missing? Oh, cake. Then you start, attachment shifts to then anticipation, and you become excited and anticipate, and you get the cake, and you're building up the anticipation, which is so delicious, waiting for that moment of happiness to come, waiting for contact with the food. Then you get the food, and you put it in the mouth, and everything is led to that, and now you can't wait. Attachments can't wait for that moment of pleasure, which does come. But this is the tragedy. What happens is the moment of pleasure does come when the food touches the tongue, but attachment's right next to it, and it's saying, I'm still not satisfied. Eat another piece. So then it's downhill from there. The second piece, you're hoping satisfaction will come. It doesn't. And by the time you eat the fourth piece, you want to vomit. So then you stop eating. That's how all attachment works. It cannot bring satisfaction. It's not possible to bring satisfaction. Satisfaction is a mental state. So that's why we have to distinguish between the sensory consciousness and the mental. And that's huge, you know. The same with anger. You stub your toe, the pain does arise. And then you go, how dare that happen? You get angry. And then you say, well, of course I'm angry. I stubbed my toe. No, that's a conceptual thought. Anger's mental. The pain is, in this case, is physical. That's sensory. But the interpretation is, how dare that happen to me? That's anger. You can change that. And that's what Sunny did. The pain was real. She was in a cell on her own for 18 years, 7 years, accused of murder. That's real. But she changed her interpretation. That's the miracle. That's what practice is. So it all demands incredible awareness of what the hell is going on in between these two ears of ours, you know. That's the skill that Buddha gives us. Incredible self-awareness. In the beginning, it's kind of clumsy, and we feel kind of self-conscious, and we're seeing our mind all the time, and it's kind of chaotic. But like anything, you get used to it. No matter what you're doing, you're able to be aware of what the hell is going on in your mind, the pride, the arrogance, the jealousy, the need to be approved of, that's driving, the neuroses that are driving what we do and say. You become conscious of it, aware of it, you know. That's our job. That's the job of being a Buddhist, I tell you. What else, people? Yes, go. Yes, sweetheart. Where? Yes, darling. You guys say who you are, just in case people don't know you.
Good morning. My name is Lisa.
Lisa, go talk,
Is it on?
sweetheart. Tell us.
I
can see you, Susan. Next.
Earlier, you said about the habit is the thing that I'm bringing in the lifetime, and it just resonated with me after so many years of practicing that today I have been mad at my mother for a very long time.
Oh, Lisa, so common, my God.
And
wow,
I have been
amazing.
expecting her to change at 80,
There you go.
80 years old.
That's it, right? You never give up. Oh,
And
my God.
she's got to change, and then
Oh,
I'll
my
be
God,
happy.
that's
And then
it,
she said
darling.
the words, I'm sorry. And I'm
Oh.
like, that's still not enough. I need
Lisa,
more.
I know, darling. It's a bottomless pit.
And today,
Oh.
you're right. I've had the habit of
Yes,
anger my entire
that's right.
life.
There you
And
go.
so
You're
if I
seeing it.
forgive her, then what?
Okay.
I'm on the hook now.
No, you're not. No, you're not. So no,
Right?
sit down and we'll talk.
I will forgive.
Let's talk about it. It's a really good one, Lisa. Thank you. So good. Okay. So the fact of the matter is, your mum might be a creep. I don't know your mum, but mums always, they're human beings like the rest of us. But because you see, this is what I think, because we have such enormous attachment, and then you get born. To get a life by going into the womb of another person and growing in that womb and coming out of that womb, you can't find anything more intense than that. You can't get more personal than that. That's unbelievable. So karmically, that's like a very powerful debt you have with this particular person, because the past of your past death, a few weeks before your mum hopped into bed with Lisa's dad or wherever she hopped, as you start through the death process, this virtuous karmic seed of yours was triggered that already programmed you to go to this woman's fallopian tube. So from intense karmic history, this woman is the one, So then you eventually leave your body, and then they finally hop into bed, and then you go running. I mean, it's the most intense personal thing you could find. This person, and then she gives you a body, it's unbelievable. And then you come into this life and you get born, and you're programmed with all your tendencies, including attachment. And there's attachment to be seen as a good girl, attachment to be loved, attachment to get what you want, join the universe, as well as your kindness and love and compassion. Luckily, your saving grace. But of course, because of the mother, nobody blames their fathers. Unless your father has sex with you. I'm sorry being rude here, but everybody blames mums. Is it not true? We all blame mum, It's hilarious. Because the mother's the most intense one you could find. So anyway, you got this enormous attachment to get what you want every second. So we all know with our mums, I mean, I know it was for me in the beginning, it was like my mother was a saint, meaning I was in love with my mother, basically. I was attachment. And she was a saint until I remember the moment, I might have been 12, when I found fault. I think people now find fault in their mother at the age of 2. But I was 12 when I remember the moment my mother fell off the pedestal. Do you understand my point? It was so intense. When I saw that I had a bad thought about her, I was shocked that I had a bad thought. But honey, it was downhill from there. And within a year, you hate your mother. Everything's bad now. So that's what happens. Attachment sees her as saint. And then suddenly she stops what appears to stop doing what your attachment wants. And you get annoyed with her and frustrated and upset. And you dump all your upsets onto your mum. So all your mum gets the lot. So then you hold on to that, and here you are, she's now 88 and you're half dead as well, and you're realizing you've been blaming her all your life. So yes, she might have done bad things. That's fine. Join the universe. But somehow, for your sake, I mean, even forgiving is not the point. Forgiving, we go on a bit about forgiving, but it's more to see that if she has done bad things, and you're probably right, because she's a human being with attachment and aversion, just like you, right? And then you have karma to have this mother. So you've got this relationship with each other. You're in this tennis match together. You are part of the deal, baby. She didn't make you. Then you realize you start to take responsibility for your part. You created the cause to have this particular mother. And then you start to see her more objectively. And she's got attachment and aversion. And she's the miserable one. She's the one who's unhappy and never satisfied either. So then when you realize that she is suffering because of her own neuroses, forgiveness is not even the issue. Just give the woman a break, and stop wanting her to be different, because attachment wants things to be the way we want. It's the most primordial way attachment is when it comes to relationships. Boyfriend, girlfriend, mother, they have to be the way and we try to change them to be the way we want them to be. This is the worst attachment. We try to manipulate the other person. So you're wanting her to be different. But even if she were different, darling, you'd still be miserable because you'd keep finding something else to blame her for. So for your sake, forget about hers. It's real. Just start. And a method to do this is to write a new script about your mother. Start thinking some good things she's done for you. She's always done them, but you just forgot because you're remembering the bad things now. So start painting a new picture of your mum. And don't just force it. You can't force it. But just start writing a new picture. Just think of some good qualities. She fed you. She gave birth to you, honey child. She didn't throw you. I mean, you're not dead, so she didn't abort you. That's a good reason. I'll tell you, it's a good reason. There's something, I think, if you've been given away, the one thing we think our mother, the worst in the planet, because she gave us away, but she didn't abort you. That's a pretty good thing to thank her for. Do you understand? So then think of all the good things, simple things like feeding you and educating you and whatever she did. And even if she is neurotic, you can thank her even more for the good things, because it would have been harder for her if she was neurotic to do any good thing at all. So start seeing her differently. Paint a different picture. And then see the attachment part is yours, this dissatisfaction that is just eating away at us, So it demands that other things have to make us happy. Do you understand, darling? Good, Lisa. Keep working, baby. Yeah, hang on a second. Here's Susan. Talk to me, sweetheart.
Hi, Venerable. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
Susan.
Okay. So
You need to, I think you need to, well, I can't hear you on this computer. What about on this one? Can we hear her there? Susan talking.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Where's
No?
Susan gone? There she is. Can you get her sound, please?
I can put it in chat.
I can put her on here, but you have to turn yours off. Talk, Susan.
Hi, Venerable. Can you hear me? Hello?
Listen, let me do my sound on. You put your sound off. See what works. Susan, talk to me.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hi.
I know.
Should I go? Hi, Venerable. I'm wondering if you can recommend some specific meditation practices. So I've been doing breath meditation. I know you talked about concentration, I was thinking purification, but just I'm wanting to kind of add to the arsenal for my meditation practice. Oh, I can't hear now. I don't know if other people online can hear.
Oh, I can. Can you hear me, Susan? Okay. Can you stop my echoing? Turn me off there. Turn me off here. Can you hear me now, Susan? She can hear me. Okay, good. Thanks. Okay, so listen, darling. Do Do you listen to teachings? Do you read books occasionally? So that's all part of your arsenal. It's not just sitting on the cushion. You see, the job that I'm talking about here, as you can hear it, it's totally internal. It's really personal. Seeing your thoughts, knowing what's going on, deeper and deeper and deeper as you keep practicing. It can't change overnight. You can't it's like you can't learn anything overnight. It just comes with experience. So the practice you've got of concentration is the starting tool you need to train yourself not to be following every thought mindlessly. That's a really good start. But then you just put that into practice when you get off your cushion and you go down to the kitchen and your hubby's slurping the coffee and you catch your mind, you catch the anger, you're driving the car, you catch the annoyance, with the friends, you catch your mind. That's how you apply it day to day, and you just get better and better at that. So I think you're already doing it, darling. And by studying the teachings and hearing, it comes slowly, all the pieces come together. So be content with what you're doing. It sounds like you're doing well. Just keep practicing, sweetheart. Keep practicing. Just keep moving with all those tools. Honestly. Does that make sense, Susan? You're doing well, darling. What else, people? Someone else here. Yes. Give the girl the microphone. No, but we need it for the recording, I think. Thank you, sweetheart.
Venerable.
Yes.
My name is Nidhi.
Lily.
Nidhi.
Nidhi, happy to meet you, Nidhi.
Yeah, we've met in the past.
Good, darling. Good.
Bless my son and my
Oh,
home.
okay, good. All right.
Step.
Where? He's hiding.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. Go on.
So I'm going back to Lisa's question, and I have this view on attachment. So
View on attachment. You tell me
yes,
about it.
yeah. I think
Be closer to the mic.
especially in relation to our children, it's
Yes.
a lot of attachment,
Yes.
and that attachment keeps us tied to samsara.
Yes.
It acts as a source of anger.
Yes.
It acts as a source of all the negative
Exactly.
emotions that we
Exactly.
experience.
That's right.
And there are times when I think, oh, Buddha left Rahul and just walked away and found his peace. Why don't I do that? But I know if I do that, I'll still be unhappy. It's like leaving my
No,
responsibility.
exactly. I
on
understand that.
myself.
So then, question.
So the question is, where do we draw a line between responsibility and
I hear you,
attachment?
darling. I totally hear you, Nidhi.
Huh?
So listen. So, okay. So I always quote His Holiness the Dalai Lama saying, and this is about motivation. Keep the microphone. Keep the mic. I might want to talk more. So we all, if we can understand this idea that, we start the day and we have our little practice, and then we think, may I do what's most beneficial? Always have that. It's a very big view to have. Always be, as His Holiness says, always aspire to do, that means do and say what's most beneficial. And then he says, long-term better than short-term. So of course, long-term means finally enlightenment, life after life. But even in this life, you can think long-term, what is better? So even from that perspective, you might see you haven't got a husband, you got not enough money, you're really struggling to survive, and you check up and there's an opportunity to go study this particular thing in another place. That means you've got to go away every weekend for a year or something. And you have to have the long-term view, and you can see the benefit of doing that, leaving your children for 2 days a week, every week for a year. You can see this benefit in that in the long term. It might not feel like that short term, and your kids will be upset and your sister will criticize you, but from the long term, that'll mean more money, you have a better job, and your children will be more happy. That's an example of doing what's most beneficial that doesn't appear initially like the best thing, but you've got some confidence based on thinking about it that it's more beneficial. So having the view, what I'm getting at is, having the view to do what's most beneficial, you've got to have confidence then that you will make that decision. So that might mean to stay there, poor, and be with your children 7 days a week and struggle. That might be the most beneficial, but it might also be the most beneficial to even leave your children. But you've got to have confidence, not just run away. So when you understand the Buddha's story, he had this view, he had a much more bigger view, that becoming an enlightened being was in the long term far more beneficial for his wife and children than ever by being just there. So to have the sense that you want to do what's most beneficial will guide your decisions. It will guide your decisions, and you will do what is the best for everybody, rather than just this moment by moment, what would you say, responsibility and what, Attachment. Yeah. So you have to have this, train yourself to want to do what's best. Now, that could mean, and that, of course, all this implies knowing your mind well, identifying the attachment, seeing how it's a source of your pain. So every day you learn to give this up and try to, it's an enormously difficult job, Nidhi. We can't pretend it's not easy. It's huge. Can't pretend it's easy. It's not easy. It's incredibly difficult. But this is what the job is. And that means you have to have awareness of your mind. It means you have to have a practice every day, and you catch yourself 1,000 times a day. So you do what's most beneficial. One day you might have to shout at one of your children because it's most beneficial, and you're confident that it's the right thing, even though they think you're being mean. Another day you're being kind, softer. So you've got to always have this thought to want to do what's most beneficial, which means for you and for them. And that becomes and that makes you courageous. Does it make sense what I'm saying?
You.
And meanwhile, every day you have to keep looking at your mind and distinguishing between attachment and love. Because attachment wants to stick its nose in everything and, want the children, attachment wants your children to do what you want, but love wants to do what's best for them. That might include telling them off. But if attachment is always driving it, you'll always take the soft option, and it'll never, and then they'll manipulate you, they'll be mean to you, and all the rest. So you've got to have courage to always aspire to do what's best, what's most beneficial. And that might be the tough choice, or it might be you understand? Then you'll do it. Then you'll be brave enough to do it. And you develop the wisdom to recognize what's best. Do you understand? So keep moving, honey. What else, people?
I just have to say, this is Lisa. My mother abandoned me.
She what?
My mother did abandon me.
She what?
Abandoned me.
Abandoned you, or she gave you up?
So she left
Oh.
me. Well, and when I was a teenager, she left the house. I was the youngest of 5. And you just made a connection for me that you said, look for the good things in her life.
Oh, I see.
So I said, well, she left me, but it turns out in the long run, it was beneficial for both of us.
Oh, was it?
To your point,
There you
I
go.
realize that now. Oh,
Okay.
she left me, but now that was actually the best thing.
Well, there you go.
5, whatever, all those circumstances. And I'm like, oh,
I
well, it
know.
turned out actually for the best. And I'm here, I'm doing well. So maybe that
There you
was
go.
the right thing.
I
for
know it's
her
hard
to
because
do.
attachment just wants what I want now. Yeah, no, that's very interesting, Lisa. Well done. Good on you, girl. Yes, darling.
Hello, my name is
Yes.
Patricia.
Patricia, hello.
Yeah, hi. I think what I'm struggling myself is have a daughter who is
Be closer to the mic.
she is a young adult, 23,
Yes.
and she was sorry.
Sit down, darling, and talk to me. Just sit, relax, sit down. Sit, sweetheart, and talk to me. Sit to me. Go, darling, and don't worry. She's 23. She's having
she was
struggles.
Diagnosed with a mental illness.
She's what, sweetheart?
She was diagnosed with a mental illness.
A what?
Mental illness.
Oh, okay. What kind of mental illness? What do they say?
Well,
What do they call it?
bipolar.
I know, but bipolar. So tell me how symptoms, what's she like? Because some people can have all these labels and then we see they're so terrible. But tell me what she behaves like. What's she like?
Well, right now she is like I think she's depressed. She has
Depressed. She lives
lack
with
of
you? She lives
motivation.
on her own?
Live with me. She was
Okay.
diagnosed.
Does she have a job? What does she do with her life?
Well, she actually,
A bit closer to the mic, darling.
the first episode was when she was
What do you
in,
mean episode? What does she do?
okay, when she was in college and she started to, just like feeling very nervous, anxious, and then manic. Like she started doing a lot of things.
I
Like,
understand.
pardon me?
I understand. I'm listening.
And then, so she actually knew that something was going on with
Hey,
her.
what, darling?
She knew that something was going on
I
with her.
understand. So that's a few years ago. And
Yes.
now how is she every day? What is she like every
Well,
day?
she went to an episode of manic, early this year, and then right now, she actually is in she's kind of depressed. She doesn't do anything.
Doesn't do anything.
No,
no
she's at
job.
home.
Yeah.
She is sleeping most of the day. She is depressed.
She just
And
lives, she gets up late. She doesn't do any job. She doesn't do any.
no,
What are
no.
her good qualities?
Oh, my daughter she is very generous. She did a lot of things for the community. She was attending college. She was really very involved and a great student. She was able to graduate,
Yeah.
so everything was fine until that
I
time when
understand. So
she,
does she feel confident she can change? What do you think?
I think at
Does
this
she have a
point,
therapist or a good psychologist?
she has a psychiatrist, she has a therapist, but I think that she doesn't want to even see the the
She what,
thera-
darling?
she doesn't wanna, she want to stop seeing the therapist now.
Doesn't find them very helpful.
She is in a place where she's
I
not
understand. So can
comfortable.
you help her? Does she listen to you? Does she respect you, or is she mad at you?
Well, she is in that stage where she wants me to, she's an adult, let her be, she doesn't want me to interfere in her life
So she
much.
doesn't live with you.
She live.
She lives with
She
you.
live with me, but she doesn't, she said, I'm an adult, I want to make my own decisions.
Okay, well, okay. First of all, so she lives with you. She doesn't pay you any rent. You do all the work. You do all the shopping. You do all the food. You do the cleaning. But she says, oh, that she's an adult. Well, I'm sorry, that's not true. She can't have it both ways. So, I mean, she, I'm not being mean about her, but she can't say she's an adult and then hang out and live on you and make you her servant.
Yeah, what I
So
see.
why? So where does she live? You said about something about the United States. You mean she doesn't live here?
No.
What are you saying?
She live, I don't know. Maybe I didn't explain
What, darling?
myself. Maybe I didn't explain myself well. No, she live with me in my house with us.
Okay.
But let me tell you.
Okay. So tell me your question finally.
Yeah, my question is how myself take care of myself and not be so interfering with her, because I know that right now
I
it's not,
understand.
it's not like she wants to be.
I understand, darling. I understand. So, okay, let me ask you some questions again. Are you happy to have her in your house? Do you want her to live in your house? No, this is a very sincere question. Do you want her to live in your house, Patricia?
Yes,
Oh, sorry, you said no, but you said yes. Which one do you mean?
yes.
So you want her to live in your house?
I want her to live in my house because
No,
I'm
stop.
afraid when
Yes.
she's not in my
No,
house.
Okay, so you want her to live in your house?
Yeah,
Because why?
because I think that she's safer there.
She's safer. Okay, so you're happy that she's living in your house. Okay, and you're happy that she's not paying rent.
She's not able to right now.
No, darling,
she
just
is-
answer my question. I'm getting you to the point where I'm answering your question. How can I take care of myself? I'm giving you these answers. So you have decided you want her in your house, and you've decided that you don't mind that she doesn't pay the rent. You've decided that you don't mind taking care of her and feeding her. Is that correct?
Yes.
Then right. Then the rest of it, mind your own business. Do that. Give her a house, give her a room, but give her space and let her find what the hell she wants to do with her life. You can do no more. It's not your business. It's easy to say these words, but you have to watch your mind like a hawk and get out of her head and stop watching her 24 hours a day and fussing over her and leave her alone. That's my answer to you, if that makes sense. What do you think? Is it possible? Is it possible you can do that?
I don't know.
Well, then what do you mean you don't know? What do you rather do instead? Fuss over her and cry and talk to her and boss her around? What do you think you want to do instead?
Well,
Patricia.
I just wish that, she go back to the way that
Patricia, sorry, so then you don't want her to live in your house.
she,
Patricia, you have to answer you just said, I hope she goes and lives somewhere else. Where is she going to live instead? Where was she before?
well, she was in college.
And where
She
was she
was
living? In college.
in an apartment.
Okay, so what you'd rather, so you don't want, so you're not being honest with yourself. You would rather, you just said it, I would rather she was like before, which means out of your house.
No, like before, like she
What?
was more functioning. Where
But
she
you
was.
can't, there's no point in saying you wanted to be more functioning. Of course you do, but she's not. The reality is, this is who she is, Patricia, right now. And she says, I'm an adult, so let her be an adult. Give her the opportunity, which means you're happy to give her the house, you're happy to pay the rent, you're happy to feed her, but the rest is her business. If you can do it, that will make you more content. But you asked me the question, this is my answer.
Thank you.
Clearly what you're doing right now is not working because you're worried and fearful and anxious, which is typical for mothers. You can't help it, but keep it to yourself. So every day, do you talk to her? Do you fight with her? You're telling her
No,
what to do?
no.
How does it work in the house with you?
It's just that my daughter have changed.
Darling,
She-
I know all that, but tell me how you function in the house every day.
Well, I just let her, I work, so I just let her be. She's doing not much. I just let her be.
Okay, you have to let her be. and be happy. And listen, but this is the other part, if you can do it. You know her good qualities, don't you?
Yes,
You've
yes,
seen those in her life.
yes.
So listen to me. What all you're doing now, which is what the problem with a mother is, all you're doing is seeing her bad qualities, her fears and her dramas and her suffering, and that's all you can see. And you're talking to that part of her.
Mhm.
Stop seeing that part. Try to remember her good qualities. And when you speak to her, speak to the beautiful daughter that you know is there. Don't speak to her misery. Don't speak to her unhappiness. Don't look like with this big sad look on your face whenever you see her. Be happy, be relaxed. How are you, sweetheart? I'm happy to see you. And then go mind your own business. You've got to talk to the better part of her, which can help her begin to see that part of herself. But if you just treat her like a child, like a baby, which is what daughters and mothers do, she keeps acting like a baby. So you've got to be very courageous. You've got to like play the role of a confident mother who's happy. And when you see her, you smile, you laugh. I'm delighted. How are you, darling? I'm happy to see you. And then leave her alone.
Okay.
You've got to
Okay.
show a different aspect
Okay.
and keep your suffering in yourself. Keep it very quiet. And don't talk about her to everybody, every sister, every brother, every auntie. Stop talking about her. Leave her alone. Does that make sense?
Very much.
Good.
Thank you.
Do your
Thank
best.
you.
All right. I'm glad I'm not a mother, I tell you. Hardest job on the planet. What else, people? What time is it? What's our schedule, Bay? What's our schedule? Huh? Until when? Okay. Well, then good. So, okay. Unless you have some more questions, I have to think of, yes, yes, yes. Go, Devendra. Yes.
Question is really about when I see someone else with like close to me friends.
Be closer.
When I see someone close to me, friends, family, dog, they are suffering because of a physical illness. They're sick.
Yes.
I'm not able to process that. That makes me very sad, and that's where I'm struggling to understand compassion. How do I process that? How do I not feel,
Bad. No, I
bad?
understand. So you mean a person who's got some physical illness?
Yeah, and and it
Okay,
could
so-
be a normal flu or cold, which our daughter had last couple of days, or it could be something. One of my friends is going to have a heart surgery.
So you have
that kind of stuff.
compassion. So you're saying you have compassion for them.
I
if
don't
they're
understand
suffering.
compassion. What is compassion?
Okay. This is where we have to again understand this Buddhist model of the mind that makes a clear distinction between the neurotic, unhappy, I-based, neurotic states of mind and the clear, wise, appropriate, positive states of mind. And they're mixed together like a big soup. Talking to Matricia, talking here to Nidhi. It's the same for all of us. You know, that we've got on the one hand attachment, which is this, in this case, our attachment is very primordial in the deepest level of attachment. Like I said before, is it just wants everything to be lovely. So there you are, you're a nice human being and you have this attachment like everybody, and it wants only the nice things. You only want everything to be perfect. Everybody does. It's automatic. And then as soon as you see something that isn't nice, like happens to be your daughter has a cold, your friend has cancer, then your attachment gets upset. This is the negative side. This is the unhappy side. You get my point now? It gets upset because it only wants things to be nice. Now, that's one side. And then, oh no, it's not finished. Then when attachment doesn't get what it wants, aversion arises. So not anger in this case, but sort of, you don't want to see it. You don't want to look at it. You wish it would go away. That's the negative side. And that becomes fearful. Now, the other side is your good side, which is your love and compassion. So compassion is not I-based. You see someone suffering and your heart reaches out and you wish they didn't suffer. I'm so sorry. And you have empathy. That's a valid, good state of mind. So here, though, your attachment is polluting your compassion. And then that seems to be the predominant feeling because it makes you unhappy. So the unhappiness is not because they're suffering. The unhappiness is coming because your attachment's not getting what it wants and aversion is arising, which makes you uncomfortable. We've got to see this very clear distinction. And this is not the materialist model of the mind. This is a very precise view the Buddha has. So it demands a lot of awareness. And this is where, like for mothers, it's almost impossible to see it. the second she has love for her daughter, she wants her daughter to be happy, but it's polluted by her attachment, which gets anxious and worried and neurotic about it. That's why it's so hard to see this. It's so hard to distinguish between them. So then the thing is, with compassion, then you think, is there something I can do to help? And if there is, you do it. Meanwhile, you just have compassion and you notice this unhappiness, which is yours coming from your attachment, not getting the nice things. It's really like that. Do you understand? And this is life. We're always going to meet something our attachment doesn't like.
And then there's guilt also that comes on top as another
Guilt. I would
it's
say the guilt here, especially with, again, Patricia's example, there's this feeling when there's attachment. You see, when there's attachment, it's sort of like feels like it sticks its nose in as if it's our job to fix it. So the attachment in her believes it's her job to fix her daughter. Because frankly, that's for her side. If she can fix her daughter, it makes her better. It makes her happier. So it's all just self-centered. But compassion that then causes you to want to help them for their sake, that's something we have to cultivate, you know? So if you can do something to help, you do it. And if you can't, then okay. I mean, then if you have the view of karma, you learn about karma from it, you know?
And specific guilt is like, you know, like you're talking about like having some breathing issues, and I'm like, you know, wow, I feel guilty that because I can breathe clearly and
I know, see, I understand.
So
yeah.
I mean
The
that
guilty one
it's a
is
very
I know.
vicious, but still, I
It's
mean
really
that's
tricky, the guilty one, because attachment is not getting what it wants, so it's very self-centered, and then it thinks it's my job. You know, then it thinks it's my job to fix it, and then you feel bad, like you're a naughty boy because you don't fix it. So it's also complicated. And guilt is just blaming. Guilt is like anger against yourself, but there's no reason. It's not your job to make me better. I mean, if you can, I'm very happy to stop my asthma. I'd be delighted. But if you can't, it's okay. Allow me to have my asthma. I created my asthma, you know. Her daughter, she's got to leave her daughter alone, because her daughter has got to, she's right, she's got to learn to find her own way. So the best Patricia can do is give her space, give her the miracle of a house to live and food and everything, but let the daughter do the rest, you know. And guilt is inappropriate. Guilt, it's not her job to fix her daughter. You can't fix somebody, but if you can help them, fantastic, you know. And guilt is just coming because all our lives we've been thinking we've got to, and this is also coming from attachment to being seen as a good boy. All our lives we've been trying to be seen to be a good boy. This attachment to being seen to be a good boy is stronger than sex or drugs or rock and roll. We want to be seen to be a good boy. And if we're not a good boy, we get guilty. We're not doing what mummy said. It's a bit like that. So it's just a rubbish one, you know. Do you understand?
Thank
It's
you.
not appropriate. Yeah.
Just following
Yeah.
up
Go,
on
darling.
that,
Bit louder,
How-
sweetheart.
how do you get rid of the
Closer to the
aversion?
mic.
How do you get rid of the aversion that you get from the
Oh,
attachment?
darling, these, you know, getting rid of attachment and aversion, you finally got rid of them when you realize emptiness, when you're a highly evolved meditator and holy being with realizations. So we've learned it's just a slow process of lessening, becoming more familiar, seeing the relationship between them, understanding them, welcoming them, knowing them, owning them, and working every day, but learning to live with them in the process. We can't get rid of them overnight. It's impossible. These are the deepest symptoms of ego grasping. They're the deepest symptoms of our suffering. Do you understand? Doesn't make you happy though. What do you mean? I mean, we have to learn to live. It's a bit like, let's just say you decide you want to go look like Arnold Schwarzenegger and get, you know, these big muscles. Let's just give an example. So right now you've got no muscle tone at all. So between now and looking like him will probably take you 2 years. You've got to be happy in the process. You don't just stay miserable every day until you look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You've got to be happy with one day's progress, even though you still look like pathetic. I'm doing a really good job, you say, and you be happy and you have your goal in mind and you be happy with your progress, which means you've got to live with your floppy muscles until they become better muscles. So it's the same with your mind. We've got to learn to live with the attachment, live with the aversion, but working on it. We're a work in progress. Do you understand?
Yes, thank you.
Because it will not go away overnight. No way in the world. What else, people? Anybody online? Nothing? Huh? Who is there? Where's Stephanie? Good, Stephanie. Talk to me, sweetheart. Go.
Okay, I have a question for
Yes,
you. Can you Can you please say a
Stephanie,
few
where are
words?
you?
Yeah,
Oh, there
can
she
I-
is. I've got to get you on my computer or something. I don't know what. Go on.
Okay, my question is, can you say a few words about living in vows, which you talked about on the Wisdom podcast, and I thought was just so brilliant, and also integrating motivation into our daily lives? How's the best way to integrate motivation?
Well, the motivation one, as I said before, that's the one of that's exactly what I said before. That first one, the second one, Stephanie. I'll talk about vows in a minute. The second one, this one of motivation, is huge insofar as I said, every day, you aspire from the start of the day with your practice. You think, as the Dalai Lama's words, may I do what's most beneficial. So being specific, that's what it means. As quote unquote, as Lama Zopa says, have bodhicitta as your motivation. That's what it means. Because the most beneficial is to be of benefit to others. It also benefits you. So another way of saying it is always aspire to do what is most beneficial. So that's a way of framing, that's a way of underpinning everything you do. So throughout the day, you get you're training yourself to always want to make the right decision that is the most beneficial for the person in front of you or for yourself or for whatever, you know. That's just how it is. So you're training yourself, or you be more specific, and you do as the way Lama Zopa says, when you do your practice, when you do your actions, you think, okay, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this practice? Why am I living my life? Why have I got this job? Why am I a mother? Why am I doing anything? Because I want to develop my own potential for clarity and goodness, and I want to be a benefit to others. That's why. That's really, and then being more precise, so I can eventually, as they say, lead all beings to enlightenment. That becomes your motivation. And so your motivation, by stating it like that, then causes the action you do to bring just that result. That's the power of the mind. That's how you bring motivation to daily life. But every second assessing, is it, you know, someone rings you up, Stephanie, you want to come for a cup of tea? Let's say you've got your bodhisattva vows, which is helping you to decide what's best for the other person. So you've got your bodhisattva vows, and I'll ring you up, but you can see that I'm just kind of bored. It's not necessarily beneficial for me to go for a cup of tea with you. And you decide, no, darling, I'm busy today. I can't do it. That's beneficial. That's a good thing. You did what's most beneficial. You're not going to be arrogant, but another day I might ring up and you can see I need help. I'm feeling a bit anxious and you're busy, but you say, sure, Robina, let's have a cup of tea, because that's what's most beneficial. So you've got to train yourself in general to aspire to always make the right decision, that what's most beneficial for me and others. And then you train yourself to have the habit to then moment by moment make that choice. It happens. It develops like that. That's one thing. So living in vows is a whole nother kettle of fish. Okay. I've always got to use ordinary examples to bring it down to earth, you know. When we hear about vows, we hear religion, we hear someone telling me what to do, we feel that someone's sitting on top of our head, squashing us. Don't do this and don't do that and don't do this. And it scares the life out of us. But I mean, it's just a foolish way to understand it. Buddha's not a boss. He's not a creator. He's giving advice, you know. So like when if you go to your doctor and she says, don't eat sugar, Robina, you don't think she's squashing you. You don't think she's punishing you. And you certainly don't think that if you do eat sugar, she's going to give you diabetes, which is how the guilty child in us thinks. It's a completely absurd view to think about it like that. But another way to think about what a vow is, okay, a vow in general, in the Buddhist view, is a decision to refrain from something. It's very specific, and it's about behavior. It's not about the mind. It's about the body and the speech, what we do with our behavior in relation to sentient beings. That's what vows are. It's about behavior. So then why would you take a vow at the very first level, the 3 levels of vows? Why would you take a vow, I will not kill? Why would you do that? Why would you make a decision that I will not kill? I will consciously refrain from not killing. Why would you do that? Because killing, when you do it, sows a seed in your mind that first develops the habit to keep killing, and it will ripen as suffering for you in the future. This is the law of karma. Not even discussing the harm it does to others. So the very first level of vows are all directly related to what's beneficial for oneself. It's Buddha's recommended behavior to prevent us from causing ourselves future suffering. So if everything we think and do and say leaves seeds in our mind and then will ripen in 4 ways, Buddha would say this is his law of karma. 1, as a type of rebirth. 2, as a tendency to keep doing it. 3, as an experience of having it done to you. And 4, a type of environmental result. It's all described in detail in the teachings. And you know you don't want to be born in a lower realm. You don't want to keep killing. You don't want to be killed, and you don't want to be sick. Then clearly you would want to have a vow not to kill. You want to program your mind in not killing. So one way of saying what these vows are is a way to turn yourself into a really nice, happy human being. So then if you learn to drive a car, for example, you wouldn't say it this way, but it's very true. You are taking hundreds of vows. You are vowing not to turn the steering wheel left if you want to turn right. You're not putting the foot on the accelerator at the same time as the brake. You take hundreds of vows. You make hundreds of very clear decisions. I will not do this. I will not do that. And that's what's called learning something is about, but you don't call it a vow. This is very logical. So you don't do those things when you're driving a car so that you turn yourself into a really good car driver. Well, you don't do killing and stealing and lying because that turns you into a really nice, happy human being. The emphasis is on what's beneficial to you here. It's got nothing to do with compassion even yet. The very first level of vows are solely for one's own benefit. Solely for one's own benefit. And we miss this in our culture. We think, oh, that sounds selfish. It's not selfish. It's intelligent. You know? The next level of vows are bodhisattva vows, much more expansive and more powerful. They also don't do this and don't do that and don't do this. But now these are based on motivation. So, you know, that's why, so you have a vow, for example, let's say a vow, if you ring me, like I said, you know, I'll ring you up for, you ring me up for whoever's ringing who, I don't know, I can't think. If I ring you up and ask you for come and have a meal and you just can't be bothered, well, then you break a vow related to generosity because, you know, you prevented me from creating generosity. So there's another whole dimension to these vows. They're what's more beneficial for the other person. The very first level are solely what's beneficial to oneself, to harness one's own body and speech, to harness one's own behavior so that I don't have future suffering, because the law of karma is such that we literally create ourselves. There's no punishment, there's no reward, there's no punisher, there's no rewarder. We are our own boss. We create ourselves. The understanding of that is what drives the wish to keep the first set of vows. So anybody with a brain, half a brain, would only want to have these vows, would only want to live in these vows. And not just that, the power of vow is such, Lama Zopa says. Before that, Buddha talks about the vows being like a subtle energy that's visible to clairvoyance. Because you make this decision. From now, you say, when you take refuge, you take the vows, you say in front of the person representing Buddha, I, whose name is, well, from this moment until the time of my death, I will never kill. I will never steal. So you put this powerful kind of, you program your mind in a powerful way with this tendency to not kill. And so vows are so potent, Lama Zopa says, and this Buddha's teachings, that 24 hours a day that you have this in your mind stream, 24 hours a day, you're ticking over virtuous karmic seeds of non-killing into your bank vault of non-killing karmic seeds, which you need just to get another human body. And you're programming your mind with a tendency not to kill, and you're putting atomic bombs under the tendency to kill. So we can't live without vows. I mean, normally speaking, when you do an action, when you create karma, in order for any action we do to bring the fully ripened result, which is a type of rebirth, and then to bring the other results, the residual results of a tendency, an experience, and an environmental result, there are 4 ways karma ripens, then when you do it, it's the crucial thing. There have to be 4 things in place. So let's say, for example, the action of non-killing. First, there has to be a sentient being, that mouse in your kitchen. Second, there's your mind involved in it, and there's 2 parts there. 1, intention, I must not kill. I mustn't kill the mouse. Reason, the motivation. The second part, Why? Compassion. 3rd, you do the action of saving the mouse. 4, happy mouse, you let it out the door. Thank you, Robina, goodbye. That's a complete action of non-killing, and that will leave powerful karmic seeds in your mind, in your main bank vault, that one of which will ripen as your future type of human rebirth. And then they also bring the other 3 residual results. If you live in, so that's just those 4 results. But if you only do that when you meet the mouse, it's only occasionally you have to meet a sentient being that you decide not to kill. So it's only then, when you don't have vows, that you actually create any virtue at all of not killing. And we need bucket loads of non-killing karmic seeds. So if you live in so only when you do the action without a vow, it's only when you meet the mouse or the ex-boyfriend and you decide I must not kill, then you pop a little seed in your bank vault. But if you've got a vow not to kill 24 hours a day without any intention and without any motivation, the vows are so potent that it drives your mind. It's 24 hours a day you're creating virtue. And so Lama Zopa says we cannot get ahead of, we can't just, being good is not enough. We've got to have vows. They're so powerful. They program our mind. They purify the opposite, the tendencies, and they help it much more easily to then create virtue. To practice virtue. Does that answer the question, Stephanie?
Yes, it does. Thank you. That was
Sweetheart?
beautiful.
Stephanie? She disappeared. Did that answer the question?
It did. It did. Thank you.
Well, hang on. Does it answer the question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, good. I've got to think about all this because it's not how we think, I mean, vows, certainly we don't think of vows. Sounds peculiar to say a vow. But we know very well if you make a decision to do something or not do something, that's when you'll do it. You don't just kind of, you say, I will, then you'll do it. Not maybe or should or would or might, I will, then you do it. And then you do it formally, and here we're plugging into kind of the set of Buddhist vows, So I like to think of it this way, like Lama Zopa has given me permission to give refuge and lay vows, which I do. And so then I feel it's like, here I am sitting here, having got this from my teacher, who got it from his teacher, who got it from their teacher, who got it from his teacher, and you can track it back in an unbroken chain of real human beings right back to the Buddha. That's kind of tasty. I like that. This power source right from the Buddha. You're receiving the vows right through this power source of human beings. It's very delicious, And we know formalizing things makes it more powerful. Formalizing things, stating it, making it real, rather than just vaguely doing it. It's a very powerful way to help the mind, Yes. Yes, darling.
My question is about the vows that you were just speaking of.
Yes.
And so when a person decides to make a vow about something.
You mean not necessarily the 5 Buddhist vows, just in general?
Well, I guess that's part of my question.
Okay.
Yeah. Is it just something that a person does in their own mind? I vow to do this, or is there something more formal about
it? No, I get it. I understand. So here, of course, in the Buddhist view, we're discussing sets of vows that have come from the Buddha, that are part of the lineage, part of the tradition. Those are these we're discussing here. But just to understand in general, you can see the benefit when you decide. That's when it's more powerful. Just ordinarily, you can see the benefit is huge. But if you never decide, nothing will ever happen. I mean, even to do something, if you just, you can say to me, oh, you must come for a meal, Robina. You've been telling me that for 27 years. It's until you say, come for a meal and set the date. That's when it'll happen. So intention and decision is very powerful. So in general, that's right that you're saying. But here in particular, we're discussing, they talk about the 3 sets of vows that have come from the lineage, Do you understand? But you can see this in general, psychologically, the benefit of deciding. I mean, when you go on a diet, you'll never go on, if you say, I must go on a diet, I should go on a diet, if only I'd go on a diet, maybe I'll go on a diet. It's only when you say, I will go on a diet, that something starts to happen. So it's pretty obvious. Everything starts with the thought, That's the point I'm trying to get across. Do you understand? Makes sense, doesn't it? Yes. What are people? Yes, go. What's your name? Roxy, go, Roxy.
Hi, I'm Roxy. Hi, Zoom. I wanted to ask about patience. I work with children, and I've recently had a group of kids that are just tougher, and one yelled at me, I hate you.
Wow.
How to be patient
Well,
with that?
sweetheart, I can imagine. Yeah, I know. How old are these kids?
They're 10.
Oh, I can't imagine. I can't imagine. I know when I was at school and the nuns, I would never open my mouth and say, I hate you. Woo! I suppose that's the way the world, so anyway, it's everywhere like that. So are they usually kind of intense like this, these kids?
Yeah, they're pretty intense. I work with 300 kids and there's just like 5 that are really, really tough.
300 all at once.
No, like 50 or 60 at a time.
Doing what?
I'm the extended care director at a school, so I watch them after school, and I'm a student supervisor.
Watch them after school. What does that mean?
Like we have a 3-hour program, so if any parents can't pick up the kids until later, they stay and we have
I see. Okay.
activities and things we do with them.
Okay, so your job is a pretty proactive one. You got to tell them what to do and tell them to stop this and stop that. So it's pretty intense. So this is when somebody said, "I hate you." So how did you respond?
I said, that's too bad because I love you and I'm trying to keep you safe.
Oh, okay. And what did they say then?
He didn't say anything.
Well, that's okay. Well, you did it perfectly. I can't imagine doing anything more perfectly than that. And you said it sincerely.
Yeah, but later I was just thinking.
Of course you were. Of course you were. But my God, the fact that you did that and said that, honey child, you answered your own question. And that's really the point. The thoughts were there still in the mind. It hurt you and you thought, but you didn't respond to it. That's exactly your own answer. That's the answer to what you said. That's exactly how you practice patience. Instead of bursting out and being like a child yourself and blur, blur and poking your tongue back at him. So you did it perfectly, darling. But of course it hurt you because you're a human being, but you did it beautifully. You didn't show any resentment. You didn't say it sarcastically. You said it really nicely. Then, sweetheart, come on. You did perfectly. And then you deal with it later. That's okay. And how did you deal with it? What did you think to yourself? What did you say to yourself about it? Did you tell me
I think I had some guilt because of that.
Guilt? Why?
Yeah, guilt. Because I wished that what I had said was truly all that was in my mind and then nothing else would happen.
Oh, darling, that's demanding too much of you. That's expecting too much of yourself. Because you're obviously not at that level yet. Because the body, as I talk about in the Buddhist view, there's a level of realizations when you really have given up attachment and aversion. That's how you'd be. But you did really well under the circumstances. No reason to be guilty. That's not appropriate. You should be so delighted with yourself. And then you learn from it. And you keep trying to do that again. No, guilt will be inappropriate. To expect you to be more than that. Already I'm delighting. I'm praising what you did. That's incredible that you showed only those words. Of course, and you shouldn't. You say you're guilty because you didn't, so you didn't want the other thoughts to be there. But that's fine. So then don't get guilty. Just think, great, I'll become like that one day. You're a work in progress. So don't be guilty that you're not there. It's sort of like you pass grade 5, be delighted with grade 5, and then have it to energize you to get to the next grade, rather than, I should have done better. Be satisfied. You did a great job. I can't fault what you did. And the fact that you did, and that's why, given that our minds are uncontrolled and we're all needy and angry and upset about things, the first level of practice is behavior, what you show to others, and you did it perfectly. I can't possibly doubt anything. Perfect. What you did was perfect, 100%. Do you see what I'm saying? Because behavior is the first one. At least you showed properly to that person, and then you work on your mind after that. They even say, when you're with others, watch your behavior. When you're on your own, you can watch your mind. But don't be guilty. Not a single reason, darling. That's not appropriate. Can you hear it? Delight, please, only. And then know that eventually you'll be able to be like that, one step at a time. Do you understand? Yeah.
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Well done.
Love you.
Good. There's Miriam. Go, Miriam.
Venerable, nice to see you. Hi. Recently you
sweetheart.
spoke of, can you hear me? Okay, perfect. Recently, I heard you speak about the Sangha, and you were in a situation where you decided to actually not react and zip your lip. And so how do you, I find it very difficult. Someone in the Sangha starts, attaching false narrative to oneself, in that case, myself, with a disturbed mind, and to not respond. And can you talk a little bit about that? Ultimately giving the victory to the other person.
When you say the Sangha, I don't remember the situation you're talking. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay.
No.
So I don't remember the situation you're talking about, but you're just
In
talking
your
about,
case,
your spiritual community, somebody in your community criticizing you
Yes.
to your face or to
Yes.
others.
To others.
Okay, so you heard about their views about you, so they were bad mouthing you.
No, but the communication was sort of muddy. It wasn't clear. It didn't feel honest.
Wait a minute. So
and
I
it
have to
was
get the
just
scenario clear. Tell me exactly the
okay.
scenario
Ooh,
without giving
like
secrets away, you know,
yeah.
because I can't answer.
So yeah, I
I
know
can't
you need
answer otherwise.
details.
Give me the scenario. A rough, simple example.
Um, there was an email that then told me, oh, this is not happening because of that. And then there was a communication going back and forth, and then it just didn't add up. And then there was like no communication. And then 2 weeks later, the other person picked up the communication again, saying, just adding things to the situation that I never said, like about
Okay,
me
so
being
basically,
mad
a
or
monk
me
or a
being
nun.
feeling.
What you're telling me is a monk or a nun emailed you and said a certain thing wasn't going to happen, and this person then came later and said that you'd said or done certain things that you're saying you didn't do. Is that correct?
Not a monastic, no, not a monastic, just
Okay,
a
just a
sangha
person.
member, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah, a
So,
person.
but how did you answer that? If they're accusing you of saying or doing things that are wrong, tell me what you said in response to that. What did you do? Tell me what you said to that person.
No, it wasn't about me doing something wrong. It was rather saying, oh, I talk to other people. No, if you're upset, if you think that people don't like you in the Sangha, you should talk to them directly. Express
Oh, okay. So you didn't say all that part.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what's that got
No,
to do
I
with
did
not
not.
being liked?
Yeah, huh?
I've got to keep turning my computer off and on to talk to you. So listen,
Okay.
So you're suggesting that you must have told her that people didn't like you. Is that correct?
No, I never did. And that's exactly the thing. I never at one point ever thought or mentioned that.
So why did this person bring up the problem as if somehow you were feeling other people didn't like you? How did they think that was the problem?
I think because either they were deflecting and like trying to sort of not owning up to the mistakes they made, or the possible fact that they weren't 100% honest. That would be one assumption. I mean, I can only assume. Or just because the mind is a little bit scattered and they weren't really paying attention and my words didn't reach them properly. I mean, it could also simply be because my speech was not very precise and accurate if I look at myself. But basically, I think the other person was just, making up stories and therefore also creating drama and, creating a space where there could be diversion within the Sangha. So then I turned
what did you do in response to that email?
I left it. I did not respond to that email at all because I didn't have the right words. And then I just turned to someone that I trust within the Sangha. And I said, well, what in this situation, how would you address it? Just kind of to, clear my name. And I discussed it with this one person. And I based that choice on hearing you a few weeks earlier, where you were in a situation a long time ago where you were accused of something, blah, blah, blah. And there was this whole thing within the Sangha and so on. And you just kept quiet at that time. And you did not go around discussing your situation with other people. I don't know if you recall that discussion you had with like.
Okay, I understand now. Okay, I understand now. So is that what you've been trying to do?
What?
Be silent, not defend yourself.
Yeah, basically. Yes.
Okay, so it needs, I mean, I'm not saying I was courageous, but it does need courage, because when you've got a community of people and everybody's got different views and the karma's complicated and it gets so complicated, nobody knows what anybody's thinking and people talk behind backs and it's really difficult to get to the truth. So when we're so desperate to be liked, which is this main attachment we have, it can cause such a problem. So if you've got the courage to let it be, and then in your own mind take responsibility karmically from some confusion in the past. And when you do your 4 opponent powers, you regret any bad mouthing you've done, any misinterpreting you've done of other people. You regret it from the depths of your heart because you don't want the suffering. You have compassion, you do your practice, and you vow to keep your mouth shut from now on and let it pass. It can turn out well if you, it can turn out well if you have the courage.
Yeah.
You agree with that?
Mhm. Yeah, totally. I just needed to hear it from you again, like,
Good.
because that, because it's
Yeah.
struggle. It's difficult because naturally I want to say, what the fuck is
Exactly.
wrong with you? You're making
Exactly.
up stories about me
Exactly.
and you're not
Exactly.
well. But,
No, it's really
that
difficult.
obviously.
But if you've got the courage to do it, but do your purification practice and take responsibility. If you have confidence in karma, own the fact that you created the cause for this from your own past ridiculous rubbish and regret it because you don't want the suffering. Have compassion and vow to keep your mouth shut from now on. All right? Well done, girl.
Thank you.
All right. What do you think, people? It's not easy. All we want to do is defend ourselves. It's the most desperate thing on the planet to defend ourselves at all cost. And we go mad sometimes. So it's really, but see, on the other hand, sometimes it's important you defend yourself. So you have to, again, have the wisdom to know what's most beneficial. Different times, it's different things. It's not set in stone, It's like taking the blame. It's very powerful. That's why I love to tell that story. For years and years ago in Sydney, this Buddhist fellow had a party of Buddhists as friends. And my friend George was there. And the guy running the party, called John or somebody, he's telling everybody that he walked outside his brand new BMW, had been scratched all along the door. So he bought a new, he had it fixed. And then it happened again. And he discovered it was the wacky old guy next door. So he said, what do you think I should do? Well, people said, oh, well, scratch his door, whatever. And George said, I'll tell you what Lama Zopa would do. He would work out what this old guy liked, buy him a beautiful gift and apologize. Well, John thought this was a great idea, so he did exactly that. He discovered this old guy liked golf. He bought these fancy golf balls or something, and he wrapped them beautifully and went to the guy's door and knocked on the door and offered the gift and apologized for anything he'd done wrong. Now, he'd done nothing wrong. And this is how karma works. When we understand the kind of karma that's called experiences similar to the cause, and this is the main way we suffer in this life, the bad things that happen to us. Look at the times we're accused, exactly like this. Accused, people think they steal from us, they don't believe us, they lie to us when we did nothing wrong. This is so common. But if we have the view of karma, we know this is one of the results of those actions in the past now happening to oneself. And so when you have that view, this guy had done nothing wrong to this old guy, but this old guy, because of past karma, imagined that John had done something wrong to him, so scratched his car. So then he apologized. So John went back to the kitchen having a cup of tea, feeling happy about it all. And this old guy comes and knocks on the door with his gift unwrapped, beaming from ear to ear. And he said, this is the nicest thing anyone has done for me. And he said, and everything is forgiven. He solved the problem. Otherwise, you read about, I remember reading about, like in Vanity Fair, you read about these mega rich billionaires who own their properties down on Hampton or some fancy place, you understand what I'm saying, who for years have been fighting. It all began with the trash can being a millimeter over the wrong side, but they don't give up fighting. And now there's law and cases and millions of dollars because you never give up blaming, like a nightmare, So that example is great. So taking the blame sometimes can be the most profound action, not like a victim, look at me, poor me, taking the blame, but a very powerful way to kind of destroy ego and help you get more compassion. And then if you persevere with it, things go well. So it really is powerful. Meanwhile, it's time for lunch.